What's up, everybody, man? It's your boy T-Time Gaming back with another video. And if you like this type of content, go ahead and like and subscribe. Man, it helps with the YouTube algorithm. I appreciate you guys' love and support as well. Listen, man, we're within 2 months of the new EA college football game dropping, and I only thought it would be right to do a tiers list of teams to rebuild in the new EA college football game. Now, I want to give a shout out to C4. He's a big time YouTuber in the Madden community, and also as well, he's going to be a big one in the college football community as well. But I want to give him credit because he did this video first, and I seen this idea from him. So I thought I would give it a shot as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the video. So we have 4 different tiers. S tier is going to be your elite teams to rebuild. Teams that you really should be rebuilding. A is a little step down from that, you know what I'm saying? Maybe the uniforms are not as good. Maybe the location is not as good. B is solid teams in college football that'll be all right to rebuild. C is like you really probably shouldn't even be rebuilding them. And then D is you shouldn't start off rebuilding these type of teams. So that's kind of what this list is going to look like, and we're going to go ahead and get started here. All right, so starting off the gate, these 4 teams you should not be rebuilding. Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama. When the game kicks off on June, I guess the 15th, if you get the early edition at 4 o'clock, you should not be doing a rebuild with none of these 4 teams. This team has won 2 national titles in the last 3 years. This team has all the talent in the world on this team, on their squad. Michigan just won a title. And I know this one is kind of interesting because they just lost Nick Saban. But I'm going to be honest. These 4 teams, you should not be rebuilding whatsoever when the game clicks on. Now, if that's your team, then sure, go ahead. But if you're like, hey, I'm going to boot up a dynasty with Alabama, and I'm not an Alabama fan, I just think that's kind of lame. You feel me? But that's just how I feel about it. But those 4 teams, you should not be starting to rebuild with. All right, man, so for the next tier is the C tier. Again, these are teams that have kind of had success in the last, couple of years. Clemson, again, have they fell off a little bit? 4 years ago, they would have been down here in this tier, in the D tier. But they have fell off a little bit. Still a team, and I'm a Clemson fan. You shouldn't be starting a rebuild with Clemson. I mean, that's just the facts. They're good. They have a decent roster. They recruit pretty well. I mean, honestly, same thing with Oklahoma. Same thing with LSU. They just won a title in 2019. And even Notre Dame, I know that might be an unpopular one. It's probably not a team I'm starting to rebuild with off the rip because the tradition, you know what I'm saying? They have been decent. Even though they get a lot of slander, they've been decent the last couple of years. I wouldn't add them. I'm actually going to add another team in here too as well. A couple of teams actually. USC. I know, again, it's going to be fun to kind of recruit California, but again, I just feel like they're kind of already an established team. Let's go ahead and put Texas on that list as well. I think Texas is another one. Yeah, the recruiting in Texas would be fun and all that, but again, this team is already self-made. I'm going to tell you a new person that is coming on this list. Ole Miss. Ole Miss has done a tremendous job in the transfer portal. That team is going to be OP. To me personally, I don't think they're a team that you should start off with a rebuild. Same thing here with Oregon. Oregon is another team. Honestly, I'm almost tempted to put them D tier, but I'll put them C tier because they have not won a national championship. But another one I just would not do personally, in my personal opinion. There's a few more in here that I would me personally, not do. At this moment, I'm really trying. Washington's another one, in my personal opinion. They just were in. Now, you could make a difference with this one, though, because they are going into a new regime. But again, they were just in the playoffs this past year. I don't really think they should be a team that you start off and rebuild immediately when the game cranks up. Also, as well, to add to this list, let's go ahead and put Penn State in there as well. They're a team that's probably going to be a perennial in the playoffs every year now because they are 12 seed. That there's 12 teams now in. They're going to be another one that every single year they're going to have a shot to be in the playoffs. They're another. I'm going to put Florida State in here as well. I think Florida State, maybe 3 years ago, probably might have been B tier. Not going to lie. But now at this point, they just went 13-0 this past season. They seem to be doing really good. I'm going to go ahead and put them in C tier, and that's another team. If that's not your favorite team, you probably shouldn't be cranking up a rebuild with them because Mike Norvell has did a really good job with establishing a culture there. They got a good roster. They've done really good in the transfer portal, so I would not have them as a top-tier team to rebuild. All right, this next one is going to make a lot of people mad, so I'm just going to go ahead and preface my comments now. I think the military schools, no disrespect, we thank you for all you do for our country. I think they should go in the C tier. Now, the reason I say that is because it's going to depend. Are you going to realistically rebuild in this game? Or are you just going to try to get 5-star recruits? Because if you're just going to free wing it and I'm just going to not do realistic rebuilds, then yeah, they probably should be A tier. But for me personally, and once again, no disrespect to, our Navy, our Air Force, no disrespect to them at all. For me, they're going C tier. I'm not going to lie. I'm not playing with any of those teams in the game. And that's just me. Again, everybody has their own preference. But for me, for recruiting wise, it would not be good. Honestly, location wise for all these schools besides Navy, because Maryland does have talent, it wouldn't be good. I'm putting them in the C tier, and it's just for me. Again, I want to make that clear. This is just for me, so y'all might think differently, but for me, I don't think they're top teams that I would want to rebuild in the new EA college football game. All right, so we also added Utah and Missouri, and the reason why we added those two teams are because they've had a lot of success in the last couple of years. Missouri with Luther Burton, they're going to be a fun team to play with on that game too as well, with Luther Burton and Brady Cook. But again, they've had a lot of success last year. They had 10 wins. That roster is going to be pretty freaking good. They did a really good job in high school recruiting and the portal. They don't need a rebuild. Utah, kind of the same thing. Really good team. Has been good the last couple of years now under Kyle Whittingham. And I just don't think that's a team that really needs much rebuilding in the new EA college football game, besides if you are a fan of those teams. All right, so here's where the video kind of starts at this point. B tier. These are good, solid teams that should be rebuilt at this point. I think these teams down here don't really need too much of rebuilding going on. But when we get to the B tier, this is kind of where the video actually starts to kick off, in my personal opinion. Now, let's go ahead and get it started. I think a team that I'm excited about their future is Auburn. You have the Southeast recruiting. Now, it's going to be tough going up against Alabama in that state. But again, I think Auburn makes a lot of sense. They got Cam Coleman. I can see a potential fun rebuild with a kind of program that's already kind of built pretty well system-wise. I'm going to actually throw Arizona in there as well. Another team. They have one of the better wide receivers in the country in T-Mac. They also have Noah, I might mess his last name up. I think it's Fidida, something like that. Y'all know who I'm talking about. He's a really good player as well. I'm going to put them in that tier as well. I think they're going to be a really good team. Just a solid team to rebuild. A team like North Carolina, let me go ahead and put them up here. I think they're going to be another team that's going to be kind of a fun, solid team to rebuild. Let me put a team up here like NC State. I think NC State's going to be another team that's going to be kind of a fun one to rebuild. Again, they have some decent pieces, especially what they did in the portal. I'm actually going to put Georgia Tech in this area as well. Another solid team in the Power 5 to rebuild as well. Let's see. South Carolina is kind of another one. You almost could put them in A tier because they've really struggled. But I'll put them in B tier as well. I think they're going to be a fun one to rebuild as well. There's going to be a lot of teams in this section. Because there are a lot of decent teams to rebuild. This is kind of like the middle ground. I think Wake Forest could be another one in North Carolina, kind of a fun rebuild team to do. And that's just kind of how I feel about it. There's going to be definitely more teams added at this point. All right, so I added some more teams to my B tier. After Wake Forest, we added Maryland. I think they're going to be a fun team to rebuild. The DMV area is a really good area to recruit in, and they always get their recruits took in that area by Ohio State, Penn State, South Carolina has a lot of success up there as well. I think that is a really good area to recruit in, and they just don't really do that great of a job at it. Kansas State, Louisville, Kansas, all going to be really decent teams on this game. Again, decent programs. Same with Iowa, honestly, too, as well. Now, Tennessee, I almost debated putting them in C tier, but I'm not mad at putting them in B tier here. Syracuse, Pitt, Boston College, Cal, all kind of fall under the same umbrella with me. ACC teams that are middle to below the pack. Minnesota, decent team to rebuild. I kind of like their uniforms. Virginia Tech, not going to lie. If they had Sandman, I probably would put them A tier. I'm not going to hold you. Mississippi State, again, just a middle of the road type of team. Stanford, Wisconsin, Florida, Baylor. Now, Florida, I almost wanted to put in A tier because they haven't been at the top pinnacle in a while, and that state is a great recruiting hub. So I almost thought about putting them A tier, but don't put them B tier because I do think they have a good foundation. They have the fan base. They have the money. They just, got to put it all together. Baylor's another one I put at B tier. Kentucky I almost put at A tier too, just strictly off of their uniforms. Virginia, again, nice little area if they can recruit in the Tidewater area, the 757. But again, the uniforms kind of is what put them in the B tier. Michigan State, SMU almost put in A tier, but because SMU has been good the last couple of years, I was like, you know what? No, let's put them in B tier. A&M, B tier. Almost a couple years ago, I probably would have said C tier, to be quite frankly honest with you. TCU just was in the national championship the year before last. I'm going to put them in B tier. Oklahoma State, really decent team, really solid team. Put them in B tier. Also as well, Indiana, Iowa State, put them in B tier as well. I'm not going to lie. Good, they have good bones, but again, it's just a lot that needs to be fixed in those programs. And then I put Houston and Purdue as well in this B tier. And I'm probably going to add a few more teams to this B tier, but these are just kind of solid Power 5 teams that are just solid. And to be honest, you just need some talent to go around those solid foundational pieces in their program. So that's why I placed those teams here. All right, man, so we have added some more teams on the list here. So after Purdue, we added Cincinnati. Again, they were just good. I'm not really a big fan of their uniforms, so that's why I didn't put them high on this list. But really, the rest of this list, these are rebuildable teams. From Cincinnati on down, these are all rebuildable teams, guys. It's no issue. I just don't care for them, to be honest. Like, I don't have no attachment to them, or I think their uniforms suck. So that's kind of where I'm at with the rest of these teams here. I'm not going to go through each of them, but this B tier list is pretty large, as you can see. But now let's get to the teams that your boy would really consider doing a rebuild with and maybe do a rebuild with in the new EA College Football game when it comes out. All right, man, so we have added some teams to our A tier, and these are teams that are really good, fun rebuilds to do. And I got Duke first here. I think Duke is going through a new regime now with Mike Elko. I think their uniforms are sweet. That's one of the reasons they put their location-wise really well. In North Carolina, you can recruit in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, so on and so forth, all up and down the East Coast. UCLA, same thing. Even though they've been pretty good the last couple years, they are going through a transitional period with Deshaun Foster as their new coach. And again, recruiting in California, being in LA, their uniforms are sweet. UCF literally only made the A-list because of their uniforms. They're amazing. I'm not gonna lie. They're in there as well. Northwestern, Chicago area. You can recruit in that area, kind of take over that area. That area has been taken over by Ohio State, Notre Dame. You can come in there and make your stamp. Arkansas, another really good one, a program that's kind of been quiet the last couple of years. Miami, everybody knows, bring back the U. Nice uniforms, decent stadium. Arizona State, really nice uniforms. You can try to knock off Arizona, who's now kind of ascending in the right direction as you're kind of like declining. So I think that would be a fun rebuild to do. Illinois is another one. I think that would be a fun rebuild to do. Texas Tech, I got them in my A tier. They're probably one of the worser teams in the state, one of the worst teams in the state of Texas. As far as like the big ones, they're one of the lower tier teams in that state. So I think that's going to be a good one to do. You got Patrick Mahomes that, came from your school. You can recruit that, the quarterbacks, whatever the case may be. Tulane would have been at the B tier, but their uniforms is so nice, I had to put them A tier. Like, I'm sorry. Like, they are a really good team, but because their uniforms are so nice, I had to put them A tier. Colorado, again, Shador, Travis. Come on. It's just the prime. They got nice uniforms. I had to put them A tier. Colorado State, I literally put them on this list A tier because you can ruin Colorado and everything they got going on and take over that state. West Virginia, I honestly thought about putting y'all S tier. I'm not going to lie. But, West Virginia, I guess you can recruit in Pennsylvania. You can probably go in Ohio a little bit too. Probably even go into Tennessee and North Carolina as well. But again, I just think the recruiting pipeline would be the issue there. Nebraska, obviously, bringing them back to life would be amazing, and bringing that program back would be tremendous. Rutgers, you can be the Northeastern team. You know what I'm saying? They got Penn State and all that stuff like that, but they don't really have anybody else past that. I think that would be a good idea. FIU, the only reason they made this list, they would have been on the B list. Those Vice City uniforms are elite. The only reason they make this list at A is because of the uniforms, and they're in South Florida, so they can recruit well. Temple, you're in Philly. You can get the DMV area, Philly and New York. You get the best of all three worlds. Liberty, I love Caden Slater. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in college football that doesn't get talked about a lot. And I think he would be a fun player to play with in this game. No diddy. Next up, UAB. I think UAB, Trent Dilfer's the coach. Really good, solid uniforms. They're in the state of Alabama. I think that'd be a fun rebuild to do as well. Oregon State and Washington State, we already know storylines about them. They don't really have a conference, so on and so forth. But these two teams will be really fun to rebuild. And I honestly kind of like both of their uniforms, to be honest with you. Old Dominion's uniforms are so underrated. You can recruit in that Tidewater area. In Virginia, you can go down to North Carolina and recruit as well. This is another team that I don't see a lot of people talking about doing rebuilds with, but this is a really good rebuild. Connecticut. Now, the recruiting, not going to lie, going to suck. It's going to suck. But this is going to be a real grind to build up and get this team back to being decent. In the early and mid-2000s, UConn actually used to be a decent football team. And some of y'all might be too young to remember that, but they was actually pretty decent. Memphis, I love their uniforms. Tremendous uniforms. They're already a solid team. I put them here in the A tier. Boise State, the blue turf. Come on, bro. It don't get no better than that. You got to put them in the A tier. Just off that alone, and they got Malachi Nelson. Troy is another team that I attempted to put in the S tier. I like their uniforms, but that's kind of one of the reasons I didn't put them in the S tier. And then kind of the same with Toledo and Akron as well. Contemplated putting them in the S tier, but they didn't make the S tier list. But these is kind of so far, and we might even add a little bit more teams to this A tier, to be quite frankly honest with you. But as of right now, that's why all these teams are positioned here. All right, so we did add some more teams to the list, as you can see here. We added Jacksonville State University. Again, decent team, I guess, for the most part. One of the newer teams in the game. But me personally, again, their uniforms is kind of why I didn't put them in the S tier, but I really contemplated. JMU, they had a really, really good season. I think they're a really, really good team, too, and been a really good team for a little minute now. So I did not put them in the S tier as well. ECU, I think, I've said this several times before, I think they actually have the best uniforms in the whole college football, in my personal opinion. So I really was tempted to put them in the S tier, but I kept them there in the A tier. UMass, I know a lot of y'all gonna be mad because y'all probably were saying we want them in the S tier. Uniforms and location, the main reason why I didn't put them in the S tier. Kent State was another one I really contemplated putting in the S tier. I really wanted them to make it there, but again, uniforms. Charlotte, my alma mater, really want them to make it to the S tier. But again, location-wise, it's really set up really good. Uniform-wise, too, they got some decent uniforms, but not great. Georgia State, I was really tempted to let them make it to the S tier. You're in Atlanta. You can recruit in Georgia. You can move the team to the SEC possibly. But again, had to make it to the way they couldn't get to S tier. But I do like their uniforms a lot. I'm not going to lie. But now we are down to our final couple teams here, and let's see who's going to make the S tier. All right, man, so let's do it. First up on the S tier list, man, you know we got to do it. We got to go ahead and put them up here. Vandy, come on. You coming on up to S tier. Let's do it. Vandy, obviously, they got the new stadium renovations that's apparently going to be in the game. They're the worst team in the Power 5, probably, to be honest with you. This was a no-brainer. We had to do it. Next up, Appalachian State. I love that freaking their uniforms are dope. I love their stadium. It's amazing. One of the most scenic stadiums in all of college football. They had to make this list for me, and they always put up big upsets. You know it. You know this had to get up in here. Kennesaw State. Love their uniforms. They got one. I think they have the smallest stadium in the whole college football. Either them or Sam Houston, who's also going to make this list. Sam Houston, get on up here. You're going to come on up here to the S tier list too. Again, in Texas, small school, newer school to the FBS. I think they've only been up for a year now in the FBS level. Had to bring them up. I like that orange color. It's really nice. If we had some stadium renovations, that would be really, really nice. Anyway, come on, man. Coastal Carolina. The teal field, bro. South Carolina right off the beach, bro. Had to go ahead and bring them up and put them at this S tier. The uniforms are sweet. The stadium is sweet. You got some decent states you can recruit in. South Carolina, Georgia. You know, you're not too far from Florida. You're not too far from North Carolina. Virginia. Definitely a team I had to put on there. And last but not least, UNLV, man. I put UNLV in here as well. You know what I'm saying? You out in Vegas. You're not too far from California. You can recruit there. Vegas by itself has a big football hub. And that is my tier list for teams you should rebuild. Again, You can make an argument for a few of these teams in the A list should be up here in the S tier list, but I didn't want to leave like 15 teams in the S tier list. All these teams here, really good rebuild. Even some of the teams in the B tier list, really good teams to rebuild. But I'm going to tell y'all now, if y'all crank up the game on July 16th and y'all are rebuilding these teams down here, I'm kind of lost for words. I'm not going to lie to you. But that is going to conclude this video. That is my tier list. You know what, fellas? We only got 2 months from this game being out, man. Less than 2 months now. And I'm super excited. We should be getting gameplay videos soon, hopefully. I think there's going to be more information coming out soon. And again, if you like this type of content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And also as well, like the video. Because again, if we get to 1K subscribers before the game comes out, I'm going to purchase 2 video games for 2 of my subscribers, man, that gets in the comment section when we do that giveaway video. And I can't wait, man. So again, appreciate you guys' love and support, and we'll holler at you guys next time.